Hello everyone, it's Spurs Reading 96 here, and welcome to another in-depth video on my channel, but on a game that I haven't featured at all on the channel, and that is the iconic GRAN TURISMO franchise. I absolutely love racing games, just as much as I like simulation games, be that Formula 1, Forza, but GRAN TURISMO has always stood out for me as being the one I always go to, particularly in recent years with Gran Turismo Sport. I've always played Gran Turismo in my childhood. It was a big part of my childhood, from the PS2 days of playing Gran Turismo 4 with my friends to, of course, now Gran Turismo Sport. And I will be producing some content specifically on Gran Turismo Sport in the not too distant future. Now, with the big news that, of course, Polyphony Digital announced the various details, and of course, most importantly of all, a release date. We'll see if they meet that release date, which is in early March next year, 2022. I thought I'd do a breakdown of a very hot button topic in the world of Gran Turismo, and that is circuits, tracks, the stages that the cars perform on. Now, I thought I'd choose 7 real-world circuits that I would like to see in Gran Turismo, but these are circuits that have never been featured in the Gran Turismo franchise. And I think these picks would be pretty cool to have in Gran Turismo 7. Some you may recognise, some you may never have heard of. So, let's get into the list. First off, I'm kicking off with a track that has certainly been put into the racing spotlight for the past year, mainly due to the pandemic, and has quickly become one of my favourite European circuits, certainly. And that track is Portimão, the Autódromo Internacional do Algarve in Portugal. It's a relatively new circuit on the global stage, with construction completed around 2008. It's 2.8 miles long and has 15 turns, and it's also relatively new to the video game industry. This footage you're seeing here is in Project Cars 2, and I think very recently it's been added as a free track to the F1 game franchise, F1 2021. And it's certainly a great circuit in my personal opinion, mainly because of its undulating nature, which gives you the feeling that as you drive the circuit, you feel as though you're on not a modern circuit, but a roller coaster old style circuit. And I think that's a very unique and I think it stands out amongst other modern circuits, certainly within the last decade. It's also good for overtaking thanks to the width of the track, and also has a tight technical middle sector as well. It's certainly proven a smash hit with drivers very recently across various different motorsport disciplines, whether that's Formula 1, MotoGP, the World Endurance Championship, and even back as far as 2012, its National Touring Car Championship. So it's a great fun circuit that can host a variety of motorsport disciplines and can produce some fantastic racing. And I think it will be fantastic. It will certainly be a worthy contender to have in the Gran Turismo franchise. Next up, I'm putting another European track and a Forza fan favourite, and that is Germany's Hockenheim Ring. It would make a perfect addition alongside the Nürburgring Nordschleife. It's a very different circuit to the Nürburgring. It's a much more, Hockenheim is much more of a compact and more technical approach than the Nordschleife. It's also the exact opposite of Portimão in being a very, very flat racetrack. I think it's the flattest racetrack in Germany. And I know a lot of people love it, particularly from the Forza franchise. It's been in Forza Motorsport since Forza 4, and it's been present ever since. It's also been present on the F1 games. And do I like the track? Yes, I do. It reminds me of kind of a Barcelona Catalunya kind of vibe. Now, Hockenheim has some great straight sections, some very technical corners, and overtaking on this track can be surprisingly difficult sometimes, regardless which racing discipline it's hosted, be it Formula 1, for German DTM. It can also be run in different configurations, so you've got the Grand Prix circuit, you've got short and national sections, so for those production mini kind of Clubman Series events on the career mode, I think this track would be quite useful. And it also has, best of all, a drag strip. In at number 3 is a relatively unusual pick, and I'm sure a circuit that not many people know of. We're crossing the continent into Asia and into the country of New Zealand, the Rapuna Park International Raceway. It's a very different circuit to the other two on the list. It's a tiny circuit, the smallest on the list, at just over 2 miles. It runs anti-clockwise and has 11 corners. It's located not too far from the town or city of Christchurch in New Zealand. And it's a very old circuit, and you can certainly tell by the look of the circuit. It was constructed in the mid-1960s and hasn't been updated since 1993. And I think this is the kind of circuit that I think would be actually very good fun for a particular category of racing. Group 4 GT4 class racing. To me, it just has that feel of like this is the perfect circuit for Group 4 GT4 racing. It's a very tight technical circuit, not a lot of room for passing. And also it will punish mistakes from the drivers. It's not a modern circuit. We have loads of runoff area. Most of the runoff is grass and gravel, and also the walls now and again are not too close from the road. So it's certainly a challenging circuit to drive, and I think can provide some very good racing, and also prove the mice from the men, so to speak, of when you should go for that overtake. It's also very good, I think, a good circuit for drifting, and it actually has a history of hosting drifting series in New Zealand. Now, I think also this will be great to have in the Gran Turismo franchise because it adds variation across the tracks we have in Asia. It's mostly Japanese circuits, so I think adding a relatively newcomer and relatively unknown circuit, the Rapuna Park International Raceway, it will certainly bring a breath of fresh air to the tracks in the Gran Turismo franchise. Next up, we have a very popular circuit, and my favourite on this list by an absolute country mile, the Sepang International Circuit in Malaysia. 3.4 miles, 17 turns. It is a gorgeous track. The layout is simply fantastic. I love the, I would say, most iconic piece of track, which is the two long straights capped by the curving tight hairpin at the end, right in the centre of the track, with the huge white awning hanging over the track, which looks very cool. This circuit kind of looks to me like it reminds me a bit of Abu Dhabi or those kind of circuits. It looks very fresh, high-end, expensive. I mean, it debuted specifically for F1 in 1999, so it's a little bit old, and I think it went through quite a bit of extensive work in 2016, I think. Not major track modifications, just tidying it up here and there. It's got some really brilliant high-speed sections, a great flowing nature to the circuit, very much made famous in F1 as well as MotoGP, which I think still visits the track to this day. Yeah, I would love this circuit to be featured in Gran Turismo 7. It's hardly been featured in any games since the footage you could see here in F1 2017. I miss the track so much. I also think it would be brilliant to see what other racing disciplines, like endurance racing, especially with the kind of monsoon weather that the circuit can provide, it would be brilliant to see some e-races around here. It would certainly spice up the show. For my fifth circuit, which will probably be the most controversial on the list, and that is Yas Marina Circuit in Abu Dhabi in the Middle East. Now, before we get into the bad stuff, let's start off by saying it's a stunning looking track. You can't deny that, especially at dusk or night. It's a kind of, for me, combination of Sepang or the vibe of Monaco. It has that very kind of really high-end, expensive, exclusive kind of feel, where it's a great looking location, especially, with such as the hotel, the marina, or a tunnel going, the pit lane going under the circuit in the tunnel. I think it's a very modern approach to a racetrack with, very wide runoff sections, so if you clip a corner, you don't end up on the grass, you just end up out of bounds, which is an interesting approach to a racetrack, and I think Abu Dhabi was one of the first ones to really exploit that kind of concept of racetrack. And I think that's where the criticism comes in, because in the real world it has produced some pretty not very exciting races, particularly in Formula 1. And I think that's why I like Abu Dhabi so much, because it's such a tricky circuit to race on, and the fact that it's different. It's really different. It's unlike any other racetrack, well, certainly that I've seen. It's one which almost looks like it shouldn't be real, if you know what I mean. It looks like one of those, well, fictional tracks that you'd see on video games. So the fact that I think it's real, I think that's pretty awesome. Now, of course, it's getting some pretty extensive modifications. Will that spice up the show? Only time will tell. I personally prefer the original layout of the circuit because, again, it provides that challenge and will be certainly a different track to have to the Gran Turismo franchise, and it will be the first track in the series that's from the Middle East. Now, my second to last one, I'm sure, is a surprise and probably one that not many people have predicted. It's an underdog of the type of circuit, particularly in the country of China. Most people, when they think of racetracks in China, they think of the F1 circuit, the Shanghai International Circuit, or the racetrack in Macau, but I've chosen the underdog, the quiet one, the Zhuhai International Circuit. Relatively newish, it was constructed in November 1996. It's hosted some pretty major events, such as the FIA GT Championship and the Asian Le Mans Series, so I think endurance racing will be the main racing discipline that will feature on the circuit. It's 2.6 miles long, it has 14 turns, and to me it is a very stop-start kind of circuit. Mainly because of the combination of, the super long, wide, high-speed straights and the very hard braking areas for the hairpins and tight corners. And I certainly think that the most successful driver that can tame this circuit is the one who can manage their brakes the best, because I think the hard braking zones are the standout feature of this circuit. Plus also you get, you don't get lovely smooth run-off tarmac areas, you get grass, gravel and walls perilously close to the road, so it's the kind of circuit that certainly certainly doesn't accept mistakes. And I think a racetrack in China, the first time we have a Chinese circuit in the Gran Turismo series, I think will be a welcome addition, aside from the usual suspects of racetracks in China. And finally, for track number 7, we're going back to Europe and into Belgium. This is the Zolder circuit. It's a very unique circuit, I think. Now, I'm not going to lie, I picked up Project Cars 2 on the cheap and I didn't even know what the circuit was about until I drove it. And it's certainly, from the scenic point of view, quite an unusual / familiar setting, particularly the first few corners where you see the windmills and that chemical plant. I mean, it's not every day you see an industrial factory close to a racetrack. Now, upon looking at the circuit map as well as the scenery, it kind of reminds me of, it reminds me a lot of what would happen if you combine Spa with Monza. The shape, the size, the compact nature, and even specifically some of the corners, especially on the second half of the track, really do remind me of Monza. But then the opening straight with the high-speed bank walls and the very tight layout on the grid really reminds me of Spa. As well, it really, to me, looks like a combination of those two, Monza and Spa, put together a relatively short lap. It looks a lot of fun, and it is a lot of fun because I've driven on it, I've raced on it on Project Cars 2, and it's such a fun racetrack. I think my favourite feature of all is coming up to turn 5, the chicane. It looks a big clumpy chicane, then what leads is an uphill going left to another chicane. That's my favourite part of the circuit, where not only overtaking opportunities are available, but also some clumsy moments for some collisions and bouncing over the curbs and so on and so forth. But yeah, I think the Zolder circuit will be a very interesting circuit to have on the Gran Turismo franchise. I'm surprised it's not on Forza Motorsport, to be honest with you. But that's the way it is. And there we go. That concludes this little video on 7 circuits that I would like to see on the Gran Turismo franchise. Maybe we might get some on GT7, who the hell knows. Of course, these are real-world circuits, so of course, if you want to put your own circuit suggestions below, be it real-world or fictional, then please feel free to put them in the comments below and get the conversation rolling. And there we go, that concludes this video. Of course, if you enjoyed it, make sure to give it a like, and please subscribe if you are new for more up-to-date content from me, and maybe videos like this on Gran Turismo. And as always, I will see you next time. Thank you very much. Take care.